So today we're discussing managing conflict. Interpersonal conflict is commonly defined as the interaction of interdependent people who perceive incompatible goals and interference from each other in achieving those goals. Interaction means that conflicts are created and sustained through verbal and nonverbal communication, where selective perception is a central dynamic in conflict interactions when individual accounts cannot find agreement. Selective perception means that two different people are looking at the same set of the same scenario through two different lenses. For example, if I'm in an argument with my friend who owes me money and I curse at him and I say, "Give me my freaking money," uh, and he might say, "You know what? We're done this conversation because you're yelling at me and raising your voice." He's perceiving my anger as opposed to looking at what the cause of the anger is, that he owes me money, right? So I'm angry because he owes me money. He's angry because I'm angry. And that's selective perception on his behalf, looking at the delivery instead of the root cause. Interdependence is necessary to have conflict. Without two paths crossing, a conflict cannot exist. So if I'm not aware of someone in the world, I can't have conflict with them. I cannot experience conflict. Image conflicts are disagreements about roles or identities, like disagreements about who is the boss. So maybe if you are a stepson and you say to your stepfather, "You're not my dad," um, this would be an image conflict because you do not agree that this person should have rule, or you should not necessarily have to obey this person. Content conflicts are substantive and revolve around public or personal issues. A public issue might be you have a disagreement about who is wrong in the Gaza war. One of your friend might say it's Israel's fault, and you might believe that it is uh, the fault of Hamas. The personal issue might be that an issue just between you and that friend, um, that they aren't being polite to you, or they're treating you different because of your viewpoint. They're treating you badly. To deal with the conflict, a computing response ignores the emotional aspects of a conflict and focuses solely on the rational perspective. For example, stereotypically, a female may want her husband to empathize with her, and the husband is thinking he needs to solve the problem. You hear this in like online forums all the time. So the uh, the spouse might say, the wife might say, "Did you see um, what happened outside to the fence? We need to talk to the neighbor." Or aren't they so terrible, our neighbors? And the husband may go outside and just fix the fence rather than dealing with the notion that the neighbors are in some way to blame. And the wife stereotypically might get upset that he's not supporting her emotional need by agreeing that the neighbors are in fact at fault. Instead, he's just fixing the problem. So a computing response is the response of that stereotypical male who says, "Okay, I'll just fix the fence," with neglecting the emotional interpersonal need of the spouse, saying, who's looking for empathy about the inconsiderate neighbor. Disqualifying responses dismiss or distract from a conflict as taboo. So if my wife says to me, if I say to my wife, "You were talking to that man all night, why were you talking to him? And she could say, "Don't worry, I'm a married woman. I would never do anything." So it doesn't matter. She's disqualifying the fact that she spoke to a man all evening who wasn't her husband, by saying, "I'm married. I would never cheat." So just because I'm talking to somebody doesn't mean it just means I'm talking to them. That's a disqualifying response, that distracts from the conflict as taboo. It's an out of bounds scenario that she would do anything other than just talk. Reframing changes the notion of opposition. A negative connotation can be changed to a positive one. For example, in their place of work, you might say, Frank really is terrible at his job. And you can reframe that to a positive one, saying, um, Frank has a lot of opportunity for growth in the coding department. He's really great interpersonally, but in the coding department, he has a lot of opportunity for growth, um, rather than saying he's a poor coder. Placating responses offer some concessions. For example, complimenting a person you disagree with can disarm them. If somebody is arguing with me about how great uh, the New York Jets are, and I like the Eagles, I can say, and he's screaming at me, Jets, 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 and I can say, I really respect you for your passion, even though we don't agree on where that passion should be focused or who's the better team. I really respect your passion for the sport. So um, I can say that I respect this individual. Let's say we're about to get in a fight about stupid thing about sports. I can say that I respect him and his passion for the sport, even though we're totally in disagreement about who we represent for our favorite teams. Pouncing occurs when you blame or force someone into an uncomfortable frame. Um, your wife, when you get home, might say to you, uh, "Did you cheat on me or did you not cheat on me?" And you might say, "What do you mean by cheating?" Um, because she sent me a text message, but I didn't meet up with her. So and my wife might reply, "Well, did you text back?" And I can say yes, and then she might say, "Well, that's cheating." So she might have put a frame on whether I cheated or not by whether or not I texted back an old spouse, and this is putting somebody in an uncomfortable frame without looking at the nuance of it. For example, it was only one text message. I was answering something she asked me, and I didn't meet with this person in real life. Avoidance, accommodation, compromise, collaboration, or competition with an opponent are all potential outcomes. So if me and my spouse are in a um, argument about me texting back my ex spouse, she might avoid me, right? So she might get up out of bed early in the morning and go to work early so she doesn't have to see me or talk to me. Um, she could accommodate the conflict. For example, she could say, "Okay, I'm still upset, but I'm still upset at you because you didn't tell me you texted with her, but I'm not going to call it cheating." She could compromise with me and say, "I still think it's cheating, but I'm not going to hold this against you. I forgive you." She could collaborate with me okay, I see that your ex-spouse has contacted you. Let's collectively reply. Let's you and I reply together. Or I could compete, or my spouse, or she might compete. So she can say, where is she? I'm going to dress up really attractive and go talk to her and tell her that she needs to leave my man alone. So there are different ways to deal with conflict. We may have conflict due to interdependence, expressed struggles, perceived incompatible goals, scarce resources, or inevitability. The scarce resources one I'll touch on briefly, which is like a lot of global conflict, might be concerning water, access to water, or food resources, or energy, or minerals. So there's a lot of comments globally that the reason that Russia entered Ukraine was for minerals in the Black Sea and in the Donetsk and Luhansk areas. So there are some riches there, and um, it could be a potential reason why Russia invaded. Scarce resources, although they do have a lot of their own. So, in order to have our needs met, to quote, win, if we're having a conflict, or to just, like I said, have our needs met, we can apply power directly, which involves using any technique possible to compel someone to comply, regardless of their desires. So, a direct application of power to my child might be, I would say, sit down and do your homework, or you're grounded. The direct and virtual use of power involves potential uses of power like threats. I might say to my uh, child, I'm going to hit you if you do not do your homework. So that is, of course, a virtual threat. Indirect application of power concerns employing power without making its employment explicit. So I might take my child's homework, put it in front of put it in front of him, um, without telling him do your homework. It's just like a subconscious clue that he should do his homework on his own. Maybe your spouse will take the trash out of the can and tie it up and put it by the front door, and it's that's an application of power. There's an expectation that the somebody else is going to take it outside. Referent power derives from the charisma and attractiveness a person possesses. So, um, supermodels and influencers have referent power, be along with market power sometimes, because of their charisma and attractiveness. So people want to be friends with them, um, because they're cool, or because they are attractive. And they tend to get their needs met because of that attractiveness or that charisma. Legitimate power is often based on the position someone occupies. So if there's a crisis and a person is wearing a police uniform, most people will follow the instructions of the police officer when they are saying exit the building to the right. Um, in that case, the police officer has legitimate power in that moment of crisis. But the police officer doesn't have legitimate power if they are in a different country, right? So in another country, they are not a police officer if they're traveling abroad, so they no longer have legitimate power at that time. Informational power derives from the knowledge or expertise a person possesses. So some people have power to control others because of their knowledge. For example, there's a interesting stories about how Nazi scientists were granted a lot of leeway following World War II in the United States because they knew they had been working on um, nuclear power and the nuclear and the atom bomb, and because of that knowledge, the United States took it easy on prosecuting the Nazi scientists, whereas other Nazis were uh, jailed and stuff. So be sometimes because somebody might have an expertise or a certain amount of knowledge, they have power that others don't. Persuasive power comes from being a good logical communicator. So we've had several presidents that have been great communicators. Ronald Reagan is one. Barack Obama is another who who have some power about them because of their ability to orate. Reward power originates from the ability to reward others. Rewards may be material or social. So, as your professor, I have a reward power over you. I can give you an A or a B, depending on how well you perform in the class. Uh, Social power would exist at like work. Your boss has the potential to reward you with more money, but also socially by giving you a higher job title. And sometimes you can get a higher job title, but you haven't received a material reward. Like you're not making more money, but they made you vice president. Coercive power derives from the ability to punish or take away a reward. So, coercion in um, in some relationships, the husband or wife might um, take away sex in the relationship. And they'll say, if you don't do this, then I'm not doing that.